Hi, welcome to Speakeasy. I'm Hayley, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. Today we're going to go through a full post-autumn budget breakdown through the lens that matters to us, the people that programme events. Budget news is absolutely everywhere right now, but we don't just need those headlines. We need to understand what this means for content, for agendas, for industry conversations, and frankly, what it means for our ability to get government speakers on stage in the next few months. So, in this episode, we're going to go through the real measures announced on the 26th of November, what they signal politically, and how you can turn all of this into strong, relevant content for your 2026 events. So, let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with the headlines, the things that matter not just economically, but narratively. Because as producers, what we're really looking for is, what are the stories this budget wants to tell? And how will these shape the conversations our audience are having next year? So let's look at some of those major confirmed announcements. First, the freeze on income tax and national insurance threshold continues, and it's going to be extended to 2031. This is quietly one of the biggest measures announced in the whole budget. It means that people's tax burden will effectively rise year on year as wages increase, but thresholds stay put. So why does this matter for event content? It will become a talking point in economic outlook keynotes, workforce and payroll conferences, HR and future of work events, personal finance and wealth management programs. So any event dealing with disposable income, cost of living or wage dynamics will feel the ripple effects. Next, we have pension salary sacrifice schemes that are being restructured from 2029. So now only the first £2,000 of pension contribution via salary sacrifice will stay exempt from national insurance. This is a big shift for HR and benefits events, pensions and retirement conferences, insurance and long-term savings, corporate finance and employer reward programs. You should expect panels like what the new tax rules means for total reward strategies. Next, dividend tax rates are going up by 2% from April 2026. Alongside this, savings income rates will rise from 2027. So this is a really relevant topic for wealth management, private banking, investment forums, scale-up and entrepreneurial audiences. This gives you the license to program content around investor behaviour, portfolio strategy and tax-efficient planning. If we're also going to look at business investment and corporate tax adjustments, things like the new thresholds for share option schemes, updated investment incentives, tweaks to corporate tax rules, new or modified business rate multipliers, especially for retail, hospitality and leisure, and protections for capital spending. These are really hot areas in events around SME growth, scaling companies, corporate strategy, infrastructure and capital projects, regional economic development, and then the retail and hospitality sector. This area gives you a lot of programming angles because anytime the government signals investment, businesses follow with strategy shifts. And finally, the broader narrative of this budget. Every budget contains a political story, and this one, the government have put forward that they want to look at stability, investment and reform rather than dramatic cuts or giveaways. Now, whatever your political affiliation, we have to look at the overall story from a neutral perspective. So, from this, we can look for more outlook sessions, more what stability means for Industry X discussions, more demand for policy explainers, and more value in government perspectives, which we'll come to later. So let's actually look at translating the budget themes into event content. First, let's take a look at one theme, tax and business incentives. So key measures like the threshold freeze, dividend and savings tax rises, corporate investment rules, and share option adjustments. These are all really relevant industries for finance, accounting, payroll, HR, startups, and investment conferences. What different angles could we take? How tax drag will reshape business strategy in 2026 to 27? The new investor landscape post-budget. What the dividend tax rise means for scale-ups seeking capital. Or forecasting SME growth under the updated incentives regime. These become easy wins for conferences that need a policy economic layer. Let's look at number 2. We could look at public spending priorities in health, education and infrastructure. With capital spending protected, we can expect major narrative attention on infrastructure, energy, regional investment and public service reform. And this could give us things like infrastructure investment, where the money is really going. how capital commitments shape private sector opportunities, and public service funding, what matters to citizens and what matters to business. This is perfect for engineering, sustainability, construction, regional development, and social impact events. Let's also look at regulation and policy, because this is really where we pull a lot of our information from when it comes to these types of themes. Budgets often hint at what's coming, even if a full policy detail arrives later. So we could, with anything that we've got from the budget, we are looking at regulatory keynotes, what to expect from the Treasury over the next 12 months, fireside chats with economists or think tanks, and panels with industry regulators. These sessions are great anchors for your entire programme, so the rest of the agenda can orbit around those key themes. Now let's look at something really practical, because whilst we can all analyse the budget and go over what themes we should have on our programmes, at the end of the day, what we really need is the government departments to come and speak on these issues. Now, after a budget, government departments become extremely cautious, so here's what to expect. Ministers will become unavailable or heavily restricted, and their comms teams follow strict guidance around political neutrality, interpretation of budget measures, and timing of political public commentary. So if they appear at all, it will be scripted and tightly controlled. Civil servants are always your best option to get in touch with. They can explain the political mechanics, give implementation level insight, and speak with authority, but without political messaging. So those voices are often better for technical and implementation heavy sessions anyway. Just know at the moment that lead times will be stretched. Departments need longer to process the external invitations and align the messaging to what has been announced and secure approval post-budget. So if you need a government speaker for Q1 or Q2 events and they haven't been booked yet, start now. Sensitivities are always really high post announcements like this, so themes like taxation, wealth, property surcharges and pension reform will be highly political. So when we're looking to frame our sessions, we need to make sure they're informational, analytical and audience focused. We're not looking to put forward political debates, as you won't likely get a speaker for those sessions. So here are some top tips on how to get a government speaker at this point. First, make a one-pager of your event. Let them know what your event is, what your audience is, and what you want them to do. If you're asking them to speak on any specific measures that have been recently announced, reference this. Say specifically, we're looking for someone who can speak to the new tax rate increase and its implications for XYZ. Name the department and speak to them directly, not just a government speaker. If there's somebody specifically that you're looking for, that's great. And also say, if this person is available, we would love to speak this person to join instead. It makes it easier, rather than running around trying to get people's diaries aligned. Tell them exactly who you're looking for. Also, start to build those relationships before you need them. If you're working in-house and you are working in the same industry throughout the year, build relationships with all of the departments that are relevant for your publication or for your conference. Budget season is probably the worst time to start from scratch, but at the end of the day, better now than never. Okay, let's wrap this up with an actionable checklist. The things that you should be doing in the next 2 weeks if you have any policy, economic or fiscal content in your event programs. First, update your event themes and make sure that the budget narrative is reflected where relevant. Also, use all the announcements and flag sectors that have been directly impacted, like finance, property, pensions, retail, anything that might be relevant to your organisation, publisher or event. Next, build a speaker target list of any political representatives that you would like to join your event, whether that's the Treasury, the Department for Business, Department for Work and Pensions, local government, cabinet offices, and any relevant regulators. Next, refresh your client programs. So add policy explainers, tax updates, economic outlook sessions, and sector-specific interpretations. It's the only way that you're going to stay market relevant is to make sure that you are up to date. And then start drafting your post-budget session titles. Think sharp, relevant and timely. And there it is, your budget breakdown, bite-sized budget breakdown, I may say, and really what it means for event content managers and conference producers. The real measures, what they mean for industries, and most importantly, how to turn all of this into meaningful event content. The big takeaway today I'd like you to know is fiscal policy is programming fuel. They help shape conversations that your audiences are going to want to have the next year. I have worked in a lot of industries, predominantly worked in financial services, and government policy, regulation, and budget announcements have always been the bread and butter across the board. So, if you're planning a conference with any policy, political, economic, or fiscal angle, now is the time to get ahead. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on another episode of Speakeasy.